there is a path to victory. We launched this campaign intending to win. The reason we suspended the race last week is with Indiana's loss, I didn't see a viable path to victory. If that changes, we will certainly respond accordingly.
We've suspended the campaign because I can see no viable path to victory. Of course, if that changed, we would reconsider things. But let's be clear, we're not going to win Nebraska today. There should be no mystery, no excitement in that. If circumstances change, we will always assess changed circumstances.
It's all about keeping your voters loyal to you, I think, for what comes next in 2020.
Ted Cruz talking about a path to victory if one suddenly opened up. Let's be clear here, one is not opening up. Donald Trump is expected to get to 1237, the majority needed. And there are some new polls in swing states about a possible general election. A Quinnipiac poll out in Ohio and Florida and Pennsylvania. And there you see the numbers. Hillary Clinton essentially within the margin of error on all three states. But in Ohio, Donald Trump doing a little bit better there. Also today, another vanquished opponent on the GOP side, Marco Rubio, speaking out for the first time again.
He needs to appoint someone to be his vice presidential nominee that more fully embraces the things he stands for.
Meaning, no, you're not interested.
Absolutely.
No,
yeah, and again, to be frank, I mean, I've never had those conversations with anyone in his campaign, so I'm not saying that anyone's offered it to me or has been suggested to me. I'm just saying to you that I believe he would be best served by someone who more fully embraces the things he stands for, and that's certainly not me.
Marco Rubio today. Let's bring in our special expanded panel tonight. Steve Hayes with the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard, Associate Editor of The Hill, David Cantonese, Senior Politics Writer for U.S. News and World Report, and Tucker Carlson, host of Fox and Friends Weekend. Okay, Tucker, let's start with Ted Cruz. Makes his return to the Senate and stirs up all kinds of stuff today.
Well, I don't think that's real. I think he said that to calm Glenn Beck down, keep him from harming himself. Sort of, you know what I mean? Holding open the possibility. No, of course, as you, I think, rightly noted, Donald Trump is going to be the nominee, really against his own campaign. I mean, Trump has, I think, had a pretty bad week. He spent a lot of his time attacking Lindsey Graham and Jeb Bush as if they're relevant. They no longer are, of course, as if the primaries were still going. And yet, his numbers in this Quinnipiac poll are pretty amazing. He's doing better in Pennsylvania than Mitt Romney or John McCain did 4 and 8 years ago. He beats Hillary on the gender gap. He's doing better among women than she is doing among men, et cetera, et cetera. He's considered more trustworthy in a lot of these swing states by voters. So I really think it's a strength of his message. I think, you know, avert your gaze from Trump, look at what he's saying or what he stands for in the eyes of voters, and I think it's a pretty compelling message, obviously.
Two-thirds of the Republicans, Dave, in the West Virginia exit polling saying that trade is a driving force for them. They believe that two-thirds believe that trade costs jobs, which is Donald Trump's message.
Trade, immigration, and sort of more of a leftist foreign policy coming back home, I think, is what Trump is going to run on. But those Quinnipiac polls that came out today were the best news that he has had all week since he was crowned presumptive nominee. Because, surprise, this guy is probably going to be competitive. Now, I talked to some pollsters today. They have some problems with the weighting in some of these states, not enough African Americans in Florida, not enough independents here and there. But the bottom line is, you know, after a week of a lot of party leaders saying, oh, we're hedging and hawing over whether they can support him, now this is going to quell a lot of that. If these polls hold up and this is what the election looks like in August, people are going to get on board.
Yeah, and it is good news as you continue to look at the exit polls out of West Virginia and some out of Nebraska popping up here. But there is another poll tonight, AB, that shows Utah is close with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And Utah is the reddest of red states. So, you know, obviously you read into these polls in different states different things.
Right. Mississippi is in play at this point. Doesn't mean it's going to last, but when Mississippi and Utah are in play, that's not a good sign for the Republican nominee. But the Quinnipiac polls are great news, and I think David's right. It will calm the queasiness of Republicans who think he's going to lose in a landslide. But, yes, he still has a mountain to climb. There are race and gender gaps within those polls that are good news for him still. He has to he's got to go beyond a white voter base. He's just got to expand it, and that's the work he's going to do. Look, all his polling since he joined the nomination, the primary, you know, he topped the polls the entire time. Now he's at the bottom. It doesn't mean that these polls aren't real. He's got to make up some of this. And I think some of his tactics on, you know, Hillary is a dirty, mean, nasty enabler are just futile. I just don't. I think they're a waste of his time.
But clearly they're coming differently at Hillary Clinton than any other Republican has.
But there's so much to go after her on, the email scandal, her deception, her dishonesty. There's so much there. Benghazi, just skip this stuff about, you know, being an enabler. I mean, I just think that he should go after some women voters if he really wants to win in November.
What does he have to do, Steve, Trump, up on Capitol Hill Thursday with Ryan and McConnell?
Well, I think he's first got to commit himself to outreach. I mean, what we've seen in this past week in response to Paul Ryan's withholding of his immediate endorsement is Donald Trump sort of lashing out. And, you know, Sarah Palin, a top surrogate for Trump, going after Paul Ryan, says she's going to primary him. He's going to be like Eric Cantor. He's going to lose his seat. Trump himself taking shots at the people who are resisted or sort of coming to Trump or open to coming to Trump with resignation. I think he's got to embrace those. We've seen this before, actually, in 2008 and in 2012. In 2008, I remember sitting on the Straight Talk Express with John McCain, asking him why he wasn't reaching out more to conservatives, why he wasn't picking up the phone and calling Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, trying to bridge that gap. And McCain's answer to me basically at the time was, I don't need to. Mitt Romney came late, I think, to embracing and trying to go after the Tea Party, make sure that they were enthusiastic about him. He didn't have as much success as he might have had. Donald Trump saying this weekend, I don't need the conservatives, that is crazy. If he doesn't have the conservatives beyond the Never Trumpers, he will lose.
But Ted Cruz wouldn't answer today whether he was going to officially endorse Donald Trump. He wouldn't take the question, really. Marco Rubio said he is supporting the nominee. He signed the pledge. What does it take to get these guys to say, I'm in?
I mean, some are unwinnable. I mean, Trump has insulted them personally. I don't think you can overstate the effect of that. I mean, he's gone after them and their legacy, the legacy of the Bush administration. They're stung by it. A lot of them are not going to support him, of course.
But isn't Hillary Clinton the unifying factor?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. Though you've seen some Republicans come out and endorse her. I mean, look, he should win some conservatives. But I would say the Republican Party in Washington should also not ignore Trump's voters. And the one issue that they could win a lot of these voters back, and they should, he just won the Republican nomination, beating 16 people, all of whom were backed in essence by Washington Republicans. There's a statement being made by voters to D.C. I think they just need to move on immigration. I actually think a lot of the details of economic policy, the subjects Ryan is most interested in, Trump would probably move on those. But they've got to demonstrate a good faith effort to secure the borders, and at least to rethink our current immigration scheme, which has been in place for 51 years. Nobody is even willing to talk about it. Trump's voters clearly want a public conversation on that. Why can't they move on that?
Well, listen, I mean, these Republicans are nowhere near deporting illegal immigrants.
But the population is. There was a series of polls in swing states done last week on how do you feel about a temporary ban on Muslim immigration. Everyone in D.C. is horrified by the idea. It's like evidence of membership in the Nazi Party, and yet across the country, huge numbers of people, 65% of Wisconsin voters favor that. Not all Republicans, a lot of Democrats. It doesn't mean you should back it. It does mean you need to rethink your comfortable assumptions about immigration if you're the Republican Party.
Sure, but if you have principles, if you believe that we shouldn't, in effect, ban a religion, don't ban a religion. You know, it's in a country founded on freedom of religion. It's not a good idea to ban a religion.
It's a little more complex
even with asterisks. No, Republicans can't just cast aside their principles.
And no
free trade because Donald Trump comes around and this orange guy suggests that free trade is bad. We're going to throw away 300 years of Adam Smith. I've been here a long time. I haven't noticed a lot of principles among Republicans in Washington. Perhaps they're hiding them well. I would just say, look at Europe. Look at the destruction of Europe underway now. What are the lessons we draw? It doesn't mean you need to ban people who are Muslims. I agree. That's an overstatement and kind of crazy. But it does mean keeping your immigration regime the same in the face of what's happening in Europe is equally crazy. No, I agree with you entirely. I think they need to respond to this. Clearly,
and they haven't. They refuse to.
But if you make the argument, you're not making it, others have made it, that they just cast aside these pillars of conservatism because they're unpopular because Donald Trump is making certain arguments about trade and about other things. I think that's unwise, and I think that's one of the reasons that you're seeing this resistance from some people. They don't want to support somebody who opposes the things that they've fought for and held most dear for years.
So if open borders is one of the things they held most dear for years, they're going to have to give up on it because the country just doesn't support it. They've defended it, and they need to change.